Alright, how you guys doing today? We about to hop into a little reaction. First things first though, just make sure you like that video, man. Hit a little exit full screen, scroll a bit, like it, and then full screen it back up. You feel me? So today I tasked myself with making bread again. That's the reason you're not getting Hebrews chapter 9 review, because I'm making this bread. That's taking time. I got a meeting at 2:30 to 3. Then there's my lab after that. So it's either I get the reaction and this video comes out on time, or you get the review and this video comes out late. Plus, this chapter is very, very full of knowledge, and I want to make sure that I deep it all the way into my brain. So, you know what I'm saying? I just want to really produce that quality that you would be looking for in a video. So, anyway, we got a video here from the Thomistic Institute titled How the Prime Mover Argument Works, because I was discussing it with somebody in the comments, and I was like, I get the premise, but I don't get the full thing. So, let's check it out.
Look at how this watch is swinging back and forth. No, I'm not trying to hypnotize you into being a Thomist. Rather, I want you to consider, what is causing the motion of the watch? Stick around to see why the answer to this question matters. Hello, my name is Father Ambrose Little, and welcome to Aquinas 101 Big Questions, Little Answers, the series where I do my best to answer your big questions about philosophy, theology, and more. Today's episode is a 2-sunburst video, and I will answer a question that appeared in the comments of our Aquinas 101 video, Has the universe always existed? You can find a link to that video in the description below. Our viewer asked, wait, I thought Aristotle argued for the exact opposite of the eternity of the world. My understanding is that Aristotle believed there could not be an infinite chain of causes, so there needed to be an uncaused causer or prime mover that set everything into motion. The little answer to this question is straightforward. Aristotle did indeed argue for the eternity of the world, if what we mean by eternity is that there is no beginning or end to motion and time. In his Physics, Book 8, Chapter 1, Aristotle gives a series of arguments for the eternity of motion and time, and therefore the eternity of the world. He concludes this chapter by saying that, quote, there never was a time when motion did not exist, nor will there be a time when motion will not exist, end quote. So Aristotle did think that the world is eternal. There you go. However, quote, there never was a time when motion did not exist, nor will there be a time when motion will not exist, end quote. So Aristotle did think that the world is eternal. There you go. However, reflecting further on this big question is helpful because it highlights a common misconception about Aristotle's prime mover argument in St. Thomas's famous 5 ways. When we hear that Aristotle and St. Thomas argued that there must be a first mover, we might think that this argument proves that there is a beginning of time. However, that is not a necessary conclusion of the prime mover argument. Why is that? In short, it's because a cause sometimes has to coexist with its effects. Consider this pocket watch and the fact that it is moving back and forth. It does not move all on its own, but must be moved by another. What is the immediate cause of its motion? This clasp at the end of the chain. But this clasp is not the cause of this motion all on its own. It is moved by another, namely, this link in the chain. Now, this chain of causes cannot go on forever, because the motion of each link depends on the motion of the previous link. In fact, the links form a causal chain that transfers motion to the pocket watch. We call this type of causal chain an essentially ordered causal series, because the existence of the effect requires the direct and constant activity of the cause for the effect to exist at all. There are other types of causal series, called accidentally ordered causal series, which we'll return to in a moment. But coming back to our pocket watch, as we've said, the links form a causal chain that transfers motion to the pocket watch. However, if there's going to be motion in any part of the chain, there must be some first cause of that motion that makes the whole chain move and that needs no other explanation for its motion. For the purposes of this demonstration, we can say that in this case, the first cause of the motion in the watch is my hand, and if I stop moving it, the whole watch stops moving. This type of direct and immediate cause is what the prime mover argument of Aristotle and Aquinas proves. However, it's important to note that while Aristotle's prime mover argument proves that there must be a first cause of the universe, that does not mean that there has to be a first moment in time. All this means is that God causes the world to exist at every moment in a direct and immediate way. Technically, God could have been doing this eternally in the past and continue to do so for an eternity in the future. How can we begin to address the question of the universe having a beginning in time? This is where we need to define accidentally ordered causal series. Unlike effects in an essentially ordered causal series, effects in an accidentally ordered causal series do not need the direct and constant activity of the cause in order to exist. They can continue to exist once the agent cause has gone on to do other stuff. The important thing to note is that a beginning in time is part of an accidentally ordered series of causes, because we continue to exist long after the first moment of time has become the past. There is more that can be said, but we'll leave that for another time. So to sum up, in terms of the prime mover argument, all we prove is that there must be a first cause. The actual proof for a beginning of time must come from another argument or from revelation. And that is another big question for another episode. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Big Questions, Little Answers. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, may God bless you and keep you in his grace.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what he just said to me. Like, I get the chains thing, I get the watch thing. What? We got another video from Philosophy Vibe, Aristotle's Prime Mover Explained. We're gonna watch this, see if this does something for my brain.
Aristotle did not believe the universe came into existence. He did not think time and motion comes into existence. He saw this as a contradiction. How could there be a before if there is no time? So for Aristotle, the universe has always existed and was never brought into existence. I can understand that, but then, if the universe was not created and was not brought into existence, where does the motion and the change come from? Aristotle is asking us to adopt a belief in a universe of eternal change and flux, where absolutely everything, all organisms, are moving to a delos. Where would this motion come from? This is where Aristotle brings up the prime mover. What's that? Broadly speaking, the prime mover would be God. It is an immaterial, unchanging and eternal being that is responsible for all the motion and change in the universe. So Aristotle believed the prime mover started everything off. It was the first cause that started the chain. Not exactly. Aristotle believed the universe was eternal, so there was no first cause, but rather the prime mover was considered the attractor. For Aristotle, God does not start the movement off by physically getting involved and giving it a push, but rather the prime mover is a being that attracts all the motion in the universe. It draws all movement and change. Like a moth moving towards a bright light, the light causes the moth to move towards it. So in a sense, every changing being is moving closer to the prime mover, and as the prime mover attracts this motion, it leads all the entities from their potentiality to their actuality. So as trees grow, or stars move, or planets orbit, this change, this motion, is just movement towards the prime mover. I see. So then, with the prime mover we can understand the constant and eternal state of flux in the universe. Now of course, Aristotle's idea of God vastly differs from the Judeo-Christian understanding. Whereas the Judeo-Christian belief is very much of a first mover, a being that caused the first motion and began the universe, as well as a conscious moral being that can intervene in the world. Aristotle's prime mover is nothing like this, but rather just light that attracts all movement and change. It keeps the universe in this order, and it keeps the universe moving, but it is not an all-powerful being. It cannot intervene in human affairs, and quite possibly it wouldn't even have the knowledge of our existence. Aristotle argued that such a vast, infinite being as the prime mover would only think about itself, and would only know itself.
One more from Frank Turek, because I know he's talked about this and this ain't making sense.
Either the universe is the uncaused first cause, or something beyond the universe is the uncaused first cause. The problem is that all the evidence points to the fact that the universe is not the uncaused first cause. I'll give it to you very briefly in an acronym, SURGE, S-U-R-G-E. S stands for the second law of thermodynamics, which says that the universe is running down. Well, if it's running down, somebody must have wound it up. We'd have no energy left right now if the universe was eternal. The U stands for the fact that the universe is expanding. Edwin Hubble detected that back in 1929 and shows that everything came from a single point, so the universe had a beginning. The R in SURGE stands for the radiation afterglow. That's the remnant heat discovered by Penzias and Wilson in 1965, which is literally the smoking gun to the Big Bang. The G in SURGE stands for the great galaxy seeds, which were very fine temperature variations in that radiation afterglow that allowed the galaxies to form in the early universe. And the E stands for Einstein's theory of general relativity, which shows that time, space, and matter are correlative, that they came into existence together, that space, time, and matter literally had a beginning. The evidence points to the fact that the universe is not the uncaused first cause.
So logically, you have to ask, what is the uncaused first cause? And that's where science doesn't know. They just know where the Big Bang Theory comes from. They don't know what started it, right? They just know that everything is moving away. They don't know what everything was in or wound up to explode or whatever first. They don't know that, right? So the evidence for us Christians is that God made the universe, and he made it in a way that does this, right? And that's where in the other video, was that on the channel? No, this was not on the channel. That's where Romans 1:20 comes in. Answers in Genesis Canada had a video that I was watching that used this verse like 5 times, right? For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. Everything that we can see, everything that we can discover, everything is evidence of his eternal power, his invisible attributes, his divine nature, and they have been clearly perceived. We see the trees grow, we see that there's other universes and planets and all these things. Ever since the creation of the world, we've been seeing his beauty in his creation and his power, and in these things that have been made. And what does this mean? So they are without excuse. You cannot say you didn't know God when you see his power every day through the people, through what he's made, what grows, whatever. You've seen it. All right, that's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys have yourselves a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.